Thank you so much for being here, Dennis.
Thank you for asking.
I'm very excited to be here with you to talk to you about queer history of Vegas, about your experiences, and what you might kind of want for the future of queer Vegas to be. So I highly appreciate that.
Sure.
So I wanted to start off with kind of thinking about the monumental task of trying to create this archive of queer history in our state. Can you talk a little bit about sort of how you began that process of
It was something that I did not start out to do. I came out in the early 1970s. And since I'm a naturally curious person, a writer, a historian, in order to help understand what I was, I went out looking for resources. Who can I talk to? What can I read? Where can I find it? And there was nothing, absolutely nothing. It was still a felony to be gay here. I could be arrested and sent to jail and fined heavily. So it was in the early 1970s that I began building an archive. But it wasn't an archive in itself. It was something to help me understand who I was and where I was going. And it sort of then became an ancillary obsession to my life. And I started about 1972 or 73 and collected actually up until 2021. And of course it helped me come out. But as I was doing that, I began to realize that this was an entire culture, an entire world that was going on under everybody's nose, and they didn't even know it. And I uncovered stories about gay politicians who'd been railroaded out of their careers. I created biography files for hundreds of people who are important in the gay community one way or another. The venues, the bars, the entertainment, everything like that. So that became an entire project in itself. And I had not even started to write a book about it. That came from a guy that I was having a romantic relationship with, and he was aware of all this stuff I was doing, and he said, well, why don't you write a book? Well, it never occurred to me to do that. I was just doing what I was doing. So I started writing the book in 1996. Out of the archive that I was building, and finished it and published it in 2017. And then all of that material, of course, that I collected, thousands and thousands of items and thousands of photographs, are now deposited here on campus in the Special Collections Department of UNLV.
Yeah, we're so grateful to have all of that archival material. And I think your story also resonates with a lot of queer people across sort of the decades and across generations. This idea of, I need to figure out who I am. Where do I go to look for that sort of...
Exactly so. I did not want queer kids coming up after me to be in the same position I was, just absolutely adrift with nothing to learn from and nobody to teach me. I was going to make sure that they had something to at least tell them who they were, where they came from, what happened before, and give them some idea and direction of where to go from here.
Yeah, absolutely. And even now with like the, availability of all of the information via the internet, right? I think there's still that sort of queer impulse to reach out and kind of find our people, right? I remember when I wasn't out yet, I would be in the family living room where we had the shared computer, and I would like watch like films, gay romantic films, coming out films, and I felt so nervous doing that. I need to like return and delete sort of my history because I was afraid of being judged. And I feel like that's also part of that that impetus of finding oneself out there in the world, right?
It's true. I mean, as a matter of, as easy as it is to find information now in the computer age, and I collected up until then, that stuff that I collected is just not available online, But we are still a community outside. as much as we've assimilated into politics, into entertainment, into every aspect of life, we are still separate. And we still need to reach out to each other. We still need to provide aid and comfort and information. And we probably always will. As much as I said, as we've been assimilated and as free and open as being gay is today, you look at some of the Republican states around the country and the massive amount of anti-queer legislation that's being proposed and being passed, and in particular anti-trans. It's a punch in the gut to all of us, and it's very schizophrenic. I mean, you have gay entertainers on TV, gay television shows, gay movies, you have all of this, and yet you have this underlying backlash that is always being thrown at us and thrown at us and thrown at us. And as open as we can be and as rich as our resources are, we still have to be very, very aware and always on guard, because the monsters never sleep. No.
Yeah, it's so, it was actually very enlightening for me reading from your book that the Sodomy Law in Nevada was only repealed in 1993. And when I think about that, a law that criminalizes consensual intercourse between two adults.
Or consensual love, even.
Consensual love between two adults. It was criminalized when I was, already alive. I sometimes forget that this is an ancient history, right? That this is fairly recent. And like you mentioned, I think we have about 479 bills all across the country that are anti-LGBTQ and particularly anti-trans.
Yeah. Well, this is where Nevada is so different, and this is so amazing to me, because I grew up before in the dark ages, the darkest of the dark ages, when I could have been arrested. But to compare the situation for gay people in Nevada in 1972 and in 2024, the change is absolutely breathtaking. Nevada has been noted as perhaps the most gay-friendly state in the Mountain West, and certainly one of the most gay-friendly in the United States, when at one time it was one of the most gay-unfriendly. But it started really with the repeal of the Sodomy Law here in 1993, which the Nevada State Legislature did entirely on its own, without a court order. We did it on our own. Lori Littman Brown, wonderful woman, not gay, but a straight ally who was on our side and just sort of wandered in as a freshman legislator and said, oh, I'm going to do this. And she introduced that bill, and it passed, and the governor signed it. And from that point, from 1993, with a couple of hiccups along the way, there has been a swiftning incremental change in the laws in Nevada. Starting in, say, 1995 was the first legislation which added sexual orientation to the list of characteristics that could be used to enhance criminal sentences for someone who had, shot somebody who was gay. David Parks was elected to the Nevada State Legislature in 1996, and he, more than anybody, over the next, till he termed out of both houses, introduced legislation to bring us closer and closer and closer into legal equality. And it accelerated after 2010, and David was there and dragging other legislators along with him, so that now this is the safest place to be trans, the safest place to be queer. And when I say Nevada, I mean Nevada. The laws apply to all of Nevada, but really Clark County, Las Vegas. Yeah. We are this wonderful queer blue island in a red state. But the Republican governors we've had the last few times, Brian Sandoval, and then Sisolak was Democrat, and then Joe Lombardo now, both of those have passed queer-friendly legislation despite their party. So Nevada really is a wonderful place to be gay now, but be on your guard. always. Be open, be frank, live your life, don't hide, because that's the only way, if they know we're here, that they're going to know that they need to take care of us.
Yeah, to your point too, Dennis, I looked up this morning and there doesn't seem to be any, anti-LGBTQ legislation currently in Nevada, and that is very heartening to
It is heartening. And the book bannings and all of that going on across the country, the Moms for Liberty and sort. There is a Moms for Liberty chapter here in Clark County, but I am not aware of any efforts like that have been going on here. There have been some murmurings around in Pahrump, for example, and in Washoe County in the north, but really nothing at all significant, nothing on the scale that's been sweeping other parts of the country. And I just think that's because gay people, particularly in Clark County, are so assimilated into every aspect of local government, from school boards to library boards to city councils, everything. We're everywhere. The Supreme Court Justice of the state of Nevada, Lydia Stiglitz, she is open. She was sworn in on the steps of the Capitol with her wife and child. We have assimilated that far into the political infrastructure of Nevada. So I don't think that we are primed for any of these kind of legislative assaults that are sweeping the country. I don't see it happening here, but I'm not going to discount anything.
Right, absolutely. And you're mentioning that one way to guard against that is to continue to show up, be open, and be involved at every level of governance and in community participation. I'm reminded, for example, how in Oklahoma, where I think there's like 54 bills that are kind of moving through the legislature, and I'm reminded too of Nex Benedict, who recently died because they were being bullied and was beat up in their school bathroom, and it's such a tragic thing to happen in this day and age, right? It's a sad reminder that we're not free.
No, as I said, that we're still outsiders, but these legislatures in these states that are passing these bills do not have the number of queer legislators that the Nevada state legislature does and has. And with those people on board, on guard, and watching, how likely is it that something like that is going to make its way through the Nevada state legislature? If it hasn't popped up by now within the last, 5 years, say, I just don't see it. I don't see it happening here. And whether that's because Nevada is just more pragmatic than most other states, certainly Clark County is, because your livelihood depends on making as many different people happy as you possibly can. Mm-hmm. And so are you going to legislate against the people whose money you want? Not wise, not wise.
And that's a theme that I was observing throughout your book, how much money plays into some of these decisions. But moving from that, I wanted to kind of ask my last question about what is your hope, and any words of guidance or advice that you might have for queer young folk who are growing up in this paradoxically free, but also kind of challenging times?
Well, in Nevada, I think, I mentioned earlier, you've got to live your truth. You have to be open so they know who you are. And if they're going to legislate against you, they're going to have to do it while you're looking at them in their face. But because there are so many more resources now, maybe you are not safe at home, you're not safe in your church, you're not safe in other places, while you may be, legally equal everywhere else. You still have the center. You can always go to the center. You can come to the university and you can study in special collections. You can study the archives in there. There are organizations, Silver State Equality, who are there to help and guide. So even if you feel that you cannot be out and proud and free in certain contexts of your life, you have just so many more other places and resources to go where you can do that and find the confidence there to take back with you to the places you don't feel safe and be safe.
Thank you so much, Dennis.
You're welcome.
We appreciate all of the work that you've done for the community and also your time with us here. We truly appreciate it.
Well, you're certainly welcome.
Thank you.